Thank you, Cahir. Look, and I'll get straight into it because those 10 minutes won't be long going. So I'm going to start with you, Adrian. Senator Carnegie alluded to it there that the former Director General D. Forbes was thrown under the proverbial bus. And I must say, when I first read the report yesterday, a few things struck me in terms of the timing of the report, or the statement, I should say, sorry, from yourself, Adrian. The timing of the statement, that it came after the former Director General D. Forbes retired. And a lot of the blame within that statement seemed to be put very much at the feet of D. Forbes, who is no longer part of the Executive Board, and the former CFO, who is also no longer part of the Executive Board. And I wouldn't blame people for thinking that there was some type of concerted effort or meeting within the Executive Board and possibly the Board to say, okay, look, these guys are gone, let's put the blame firmly at their feet and we'll absolve ourselves of any blame. Is that fair enough? Is that what happened?
Just to address that, I mean, I think, over the last 7 days, I have looked at, correspondence, been supported by the legal function to look at the contracts and all of that, and put together a kind of timeline of events. I think, there's a couple of things here. There's key questions that still need to be addressed, and we'll come to them in a second. But this is not good reading in terms of corporate governance or transparency. It's the total opposite. So from an exec board point of view, we absolutely own the fact that this feels siloed, fragmented, the fact that talent contracts don't come to the executive board.
All the blame in terms of the contracts and the agreements is you're laying at the feet of the former Director General.
So in terms of that, if you look at the line that's actually written, which is about which members of the exec board had knowledge that the published figures were incorrect. So as we've discussed, there is controversy around the top 10 when they get published. So actually presenting figures that were incorrect to the houses of the Oireachtas. So why did that happen? And looking at the documentation that is available, on May the 7th, when a verbal guarantee was given to underwrite the commercial arrangement with Ryan Tubridy, which was completely lawful and so on, but then through COVID, that commercial arrangement fell by the wayside.
We know what happened, and I must move on, but because I want to know what other documents you examined, because your statement, I think, is contradicted by the former DG statement. Your statement basically sets out that the former DG was the only one who had all the relevant information, but the former DG statement says, following detailed discussions, including numerous internal communications over many months with RTE colleagues, including finance and legal colleagues, an agreement was reached. Who were who was the former DG
I think what's important there,
communicating with internally?
In terms of my statement, it relates to the published figures, which is the significant piece. So
okay, so in terms of the underwriting part, you were aware of that, so
I wasn't at all.
And the guarantee.
Didn't know anything about the guarantee or the underwriting.
Can I ask, was any of the 7 witnesses here today, were any of you aware of that element of it, the guarantee or the
when the payments for year 2 and 3 needed to be paid, and the amount of conversations that I had directly with the Director General in relation to finding that they needed to be paid, I understood it was part of the agreement. As I said, and I know it's frustrating to say who knew what, but I only knew about the commercial element of the deal. I had no idea what this 75 grand represented in terms of the overall value.
Did any of the executive board outside?
So it became obvious to me that there was obviously some commitment to pay the money when I was asked to raise the invoices. But I only found out subsequently that it was underwritten.
I'm going to come back to that. There was mention of pushback against this approach of the underwriting and the guarantee. Who was pushing back? Did someone have a conversation with the former DG and said, look, we don't think this underwriting or this guarantee approach is the right way to go?
So in terms of that, from the correspondence I've seen, it was around the agent wanted to have it underwritten, and that was never agreed to. So that went on and on and on for about 6 or 7 months.
Who was aware that that was an approach that the Director General was looking at, this underwriting guarantee?
So these would have been exchanges between the agent and legal, in terms of looking for the arrangement to be underwritten.
Did you at any point advise the Director General that this guarantee or underwriting of payments wasn't the way to go?
did I advise her? But there was no way RT would sign something.
But did you or anyone on the executive board advise the Director General that we should not proceed with this underwriting guarantee of a third-party payment?
No, I didn't, because there is no way, and I know in the end, this agreement, which again we have to say is lawful as we're sitting here, there is no way that RT would underwrite a commercial agreement like this.
It's lawful, but it's completely unethical,
right,
as we know.
Yeah.
No, so that's still very muddy. There's talk about pushback. There's talk about awareness of some members. We'll say, obviously, we know that the Director of Content isn't here today, but apparently, according to the statement, he was kept informed of elements of the agreement. Do we know what he was informed of? Was he informed of that guarantee underwriting element? Was he?
So he would have been aware of the fact that the agent wanted the guarantee.
Okay, so there was an awareness,
yeah,
that the agent wanted a guarantee on the executive board. So nobody thought to check for it after. Nobody thought to check for it during the years 2020, 2021, and 2022, even though it was mentioned and there was an awareness of it.
So again, I can't speak for the Director of Content, but I suppose what I would say is that while the correspondence, which I would have seen in terms of it going on and on and on over the last 7 days, the last 6 months, there was no way RT would underwrite a deal like that, because immediately when you underwrite that deal, and it was a commercial agreement that brings risk with it, because basically if you can't fulfill an arrangement with the sponsor, then RTE are paying Ryan Tubridy directly.
We know how it works. My concern is that there was awareness that this was potentially an approach. There was awareness that this was a request from the agent, but no one sought to keep checks on it, to inquire, to see had the Director General stuck with that approach or not, and therefore we're in this position. So I don't think that there can be complete absolution from involvement here. I just want to come back to Darlene, if that's okay. Obviously, you say you can't remember elements of the invoice, I think is what you said. Were you aware that the invoices pertained to the payment of Mr. Tubridy?
Yes, it was.
You were aware?
Yes, it was.
And the term consultancy fees didn't jump out at you at that point?
The first time I saw the invoices was in March of this year, when they were brought to my attention by the CFO.
I thought you raised the invoices in May 2020.
Yeah, they were raised to my office, but I didn't see the invoices. I didn't see the actual terminology of the invoices. They were raised to my office. The conversation about whether consultancy fees, which I've said consistently, it may well have been a conversation with me and the Director General, but I don't want to say it was, because I cannot remember the precise conversation. So I'm choosing to be honest rather than giving an answer that I'm not 100%.
Okay, so if you're honest as well, if your office that you obviously oversee
yes,
knew that invoices pertain to the payment of Mr. Tubridy and they had the words consultancy fees, I'm not sure what Mr. Tubridy would be providing consultancy for, but would that not have raised flags with your office?
His name was not on the invoices.
But you knew the invoices pertained to the payment from Mr. Tubridy?
I did, because I was aware that they were related to the 75 grand per annum, which the first deal of which I represented to our commercial partner.
That's again, I think, seriously concerning that there's, you say you didn't see them directly yourself, but that there was such a lack of oversight within your office. Clearly there wasn't the checks and balances in place to see that the term consultancy fees on an invoice that pertained to the payment of Mr. Tubridy wasn't flagged at that time. I think that beggars belief, to be honest. Well,
I think I would agree that the controls around the barter account, it has been proven not to be good enough, and we are addressing that.
Mr. Collins, just very briefly on to you. Would you consider, I certainly would consider €150,000 a lot of money. It's significant. Would you agree that, would you consider that's a significant amount?
Significant, yeah.
The reason I pick those two amounts is that I think that's what the two invoices of May and July that we're talking about added up to. But as CFO, Chief Financial Officer, that was completely outside your remit, and you've no oversight whatsoever of payments of that scale.
Well, in the rest of the business, yes, but not what went through the barter account. I mean, in terms of significance, large amounts had gone through the barter account in previous years, like 2018 and 2019. So it wasn't unusual to have figures of, 75,000, 100,000 going through that with oversight from the DG. So You know, when I saw that it was approved by the DG, that was the internal control, and that gave me comfort.
To me, again, it's this case of laying all the blame at the DG. I think clearly what's been demonstrated here is a lack of oversight, a lack of checks and balances, including from the Chief Financial Officer pertaining to the years that you were there from 2020 to 2022. And that's just something that appears to me. I'll finish on this because I'm out of time as well. This whole issue, and this is, I suppose, a statement rather than a question, but the culture within RTE, especially the top brass of RTE, it seems rotten. And this idea of special treatment for one person, and we all saw the scenes of RTE employees protesting, having the bravery to speak out about what they thought was completely unfair treatment, having to watch colleagues being laid off, having to fight for every cent of payment that they got, having to work with freelancers who in many instances were treated despicably. Yet, and you know, my first memories of RTE, I think many it'll be lost on a generation, but certainly my first memories were of Bosco and his magic door. And then you have obviously 40 coats with his 50 pockets. And it clearly seems to me that Bosco and his magic door are clearly still present in RTE, and so are his 40 coats and his 50 pockets. And I think that culture has to be changed. It has to be stamped out, and I'm not sure if the current executive board are the people who can do that, but we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Okay.